Hi, everybody. This is, it's Man Alone, and I've got some new games. I was planning on doing a live stream, but I just, so I took a nap I took like a half hour nap at 2 p.m., and I woke up around 7:30. And there was just a lot of people in the dream that I had, and it was very vivid. And so I'm kind of feeling, you know, overwhelmed and would just like some alone time, which is the whole purpose of this channel. And so, but what I did just do is I got some games from the game store, which I'm very excited about. So this is kind of like an unboxing video, except there's no box. Um, I've only looked at all of these games as much as one looks at a game inside of a game store when it's got 17 minutes till it closes, and also you have a $10 gift card, and so you're desperate to use it. Even though you don't have to. There was no reason I had to use it, but like I had to use it, right? And then I also wanted to include this one, which I got recently, Fallen by Perplexing Ruins. Is this a playthrough? No. Is this an explanation? No. I've only read a little bit of these. Some of them I made the decision based on really bad criteria. Some of them I made, like this one right here. I bought this because I was like, all right, fine. Because I just seen it so many times that I just finally said, that's fine. We'll get that. But these are all solo games. And so let's talk it out. All right. So this first one here is Fallen by Perplexing Ruins. I don't know why I hear about Perplexing Ruins so much. It just seems like I think Perplexing Ruins does art in a lot of RPGs, maybe, and also has a lot of RPGs of their own, and is sort of a prolific indie designer. But whatever is the case, I just saw too many positive recommendations for Fallen here, a Baroque and grim fantasy tabletop RPG. Fallen sits somewhere in the historical precedent of the early modern period, generally speaking, Euro-American 1600 to 1850. So that's an interesting time period. You don't see a lot of tabletop RPGs set in that time, which is kind of cool, right? Because you're going to have like duels and gunpowder, those swords that have the hand handle. They must have thought that was such a cool innovation then. They're like, oh man, we have these swords now and they have like a cover on our hand so our hand can't get hurt. And then they were like, yeah, but what we don't know is that in like 30 years there'll be machine guns. So one of the things that this is the only one of these books that I did have looked at prior to sitting down right now. So many good oracles in here. This one is Esoterica. And these are spark tables, they're called in here. So it's a lot of like just like nouns that are sort of on brand adjectives, verbs, and this is a great. I would almost call it a curio, which is what it's called in my game, which I'm very excited to tell you about changes that I have in my game. Thank you again for all the ideas. But these are inputs that you can craft entire ideas from. You know, this is really like the emulation engine of a lot of solo RPG books, and just this one just does it so well. It has a lot of good stuff in it. There's a bestiary here. Obviously, the pictures are super cool. Oh God, I love that. And that is called, as far as I can tell, the Ass Giant. Yeah, this monster is called the Ass Giant, and you can see it's a big old ass. Sorry. No, this is actually an awesome creepy picture. Bloodsack moth, bog troll, bone collector. On the top here it says, "Be wary, be wary. The bone man brings no tidings merry." So true. Yeah, there. Okay, so that's another thing I should say I really like about Fallen is there's just like really good flavor text all over it, including this very rad poem at the end, and it's actually like good. And that's something that Dungeon Dive talks about a lot is sometimes you'll have like flavor text and the person's a very good RPG writer, but as terms of like how good of a writer they are, that maybe not as good always. Um, and so this is one that definitely has great writing, great art, and the system looks solid. I mean, it is again, as all of these are, pretty compact systems. Probably relies a lot on the fact that you are experienced with tabletop RPG play and can kind of fill in the blanks with a lot of this stuff. There's a fear system here. When you come to face with something horrifying for the first time, you must test your will. Roll 2d6 plus will minus foe's fear rating. There's dueling, blades and boxing and firearms. I think that's great. This is when fighting was like historically was at its worst. It just sucked. It was like so the boxing they did like this, where you like roll your hands. And then the duel, I mean, can you think of well, let me phrase it like this. Were either of these guys able to think of a better way to do this? Like, this just doesn't seem good odds for anyone, right? Anyways, I'm here to talk about this, which is very good, not about the time period itself, which kind of sucked. Yeah. So, this could be a really cool solo that maybe I can do on a future live stream. This is journey type waypoints. Cool. All right. So that's Fallen by Perplexing Ruins. Looks pretty good. I'm going to do that one. 4 Against the Great Old One. So I do have 4 Against Darkness, and I do intend to do a playthrough of 4AD. And this system here, let's see here. Is this by, Marco Ornato, Andreas Filigo. Man, I didn't know how to say this last time. Hold on. Andreas Filigoi. Very good. And so this one is like 4 Against Darkness, but it is Eldritch. Lovecraftian, right? And so let's see now. One of the things that is the best thing about... Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, here's the archetypes. One of the things that's the best thing about 4 Against Darkness is the sort of mechanic, the cycle of events. And so I'm wondering, like, what's the main... I hope that the main cycle of play here is the same. And I didn't actually realize this, and I'm kind of ashamed of that, but the Broken Cask, the events table from that is influenced by this, which is really cool. That's such a great idea. And you may be seeing it again in my updated RPG that I can't wait to show everyone again soon, once I get it to a place where I can, it's not going to be a chaotic explanation of it. Leveling up, equipment, experimental weapons. Went like this. I'm wondering, okay, free actions. Common free actions include voluntarily removing investigators, discarding equipment. All right, so I'm betting... yeah, this is the final encounter table. So it has like Shub-Niggurath, Nyarla, Thotep, Dagon, Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth. I'm wondering if... Okay, so it says it's a clue system. You have to acquire a third clue. You determine the entity that is being summoned. Look up the entities section among final encounters. So this, I think this might be a little different than 4 Against Darkness. I'm not sure if they have a final encounters, although at the game store that I was at today, God bless this game store for existing. For those of you who saw the pictures, it's a miracle to have a game store with so many indie RPGs, old RPGs, used RPGs. It's wonderful. But they do have a whole section on For Against Darkness system, and they have a lot of expansions. And one of them is like for Against the Abyss, which is like the advanced levels for Against Darkness, and then they have a lot that are like final encounters for Against Darkness. So I'd have to look if anyone knows if they have a if they have a included in For Against Darkness, is there a final encounters? Now this looks different than For Against Darkness here. There looks like these investigations. These might be, oh, I like this. Investigate Boston. I'd like to. What's wrong with all of them? Yeah, I should have grabbed For Against Darkness so that I can look at these side by side, to be honest, but this looks like it does take place in the United States, because I'm seeing Catskill Mountains, Boston, Chicago, Dunwich. Is that in Connecticut? Is that in one of those places that people say Dunwich? I think that's actually a Lovecraft thing, like Innsmouth. Yeah, so it looks like you check off these different investigations here. So this might be its own system. That's pretty cool. Los Angeles. Investigate Los Angeles. I don't think you're ever going to figure out what's going on there. New Orleans. Oh, you know what? I'm going to ask now. I hope that there is one piece of literature about the United States that does not include New York. Please, let New Orleans be the last city. Investigate the swamps. Okay? So that's, I mean, that might be New York. New York. Investigate New York. Of course, New York. Providence. It's pretty cool. Salem. Yeah, so this is set up with investigations, which is different. That is really cool, though. St. Louis. Oh, that's so great. So San Francisco. So there's so many different... So maybe this whole thing looks like you got to go from city to city here. Yeah, this is actually, it looks to be very different than For Against Darkness, because in For Against Darkness, there's the events table where you roll a 2d12 and you kind of craft a dungeon, right? You're actually drawing up the dungeon, and I'm not really seeing that here. Well, this looks like a what the hell is this, a D100? A D60, if it is even a D60. What is this here? Let's take a look here. The forest. I think this might be just like a maze. Like you have to just keep going until you find the end of it, right? And then you finally find the clearing of the black goat. That's what we're all looking for. Okay, so a few tables here. This is the gate table. Dreamlands table. Arcane items. Yeah, so this is surprising. This is really cool, actually. This is different than for AD. Here's the map. Oh. Play sheet. Yeah, so color me surprised here, because I think this is kind of delightful, right? Because once someone creates a good system, you'll often see, and there's no shade in this, like that this actually, which by the way, I got a discount on this because it said it was creased, and then I was like, oh man, it said cover creased, and I was like, oh, I'm getting away with murder here. The cover is not creased. And then I got home and I was like, oh, that's what they meant right up there. Okay, that's fine. Love. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look. 40 days from now, the Dark Cult will congregate somewhere in the United States to summon a cosmic entity of infinite horror. What's new? The only hope for the world is a group of 4 intrepid investigators who will stop at nothing to find the necessary clues, identify the cult, and stop the great ritual. I always love the team of investigators, because it's always like, yep, makes sense, private detective. Sure, veteran. Why? It's like, well, we got to have a guy who knows his way around a Tommy gun. Spy, makes sense. Professor, sure. Interesting. Like this, I feel like would give your group away at all times if you had like a nurse and a gangster just following around, and then a medium. My goodness, now you're really just bringing attention to yourself. And the occultist, he looks like that guy who plays Abomination. What's that? Is that Tim Roth? Anyways, all right. The only hope for the world is your four intrepid investigators to find the clues, identify the cult. Four Against the Great Old Ones is a game of Lovecraftian dread and horror set in the 1930s. It's an old-school pen and paper game that can be enjoyed in solitaire, cooperative, or RPG Lite. It's a standalone game based on Four Against Darkness system, modified to include insanity, helpers, 8 new main characters, a unique clue system, and 6 possible final encounters, each a full mini game. Yeah, that was kind of cool. So like each of the final encounters had its own little like lead up mini game, which was really cool. Narrative driven and true to its source material, Four Against the Great Old Ones will provide a deep immersion. The game's designed to be challenging. Determination. Do you dare to face the Great Old Ones? Not really. In a lot of eldritch horror games, what I like about them is that, and I'm kind of trying to include this in my game, is like you're not really gonna beat Cthulhu. Like the whole thing about Dagon or Yog-Sothoth is like you're an ant to them. Like they don't even notice you. That is like cosmic horror, right? It's not that you have this mean monster with an axe following you. It's that the monsters, the true powers of the universe are so vast, you are nothing to them. You are meaningless to them. Yeah. And that I could be meaningless to them, but that's gross. So 1 point, man alone. All right, Candlelight. Now this one I got because a long time ago, I got Trophy Dark. And there are 3 trophy games that I know of right now. There's Trophy Dark, which is a horror one. Trophy Gold, which is more like fantasy. And Trophy Loom, which, as I understand it, is sort of you create your own sort of system. And Trophy Dark is a unique system that I've wanted to play for a while. And in fact, in my city, there was a group playing it recently, and I was not able to make it, even though I had intended to. But generally, what sets this apart, first of all, is the mechanic is that there's like a dark and a light die in the game. So that's a unique mechanic. Really nice book. You're a treasure hunter, all right? And especially in Trophy Dark here, you, as a treasure hunter, yeah, see, this is like light dice, dark dice. In Trophy Dark, you're really not going to, you're usually not going to survive. But you have an incursion, right, where you go into the forest, like looking for treasure. You set conditions, and there's this. I'll try to find it. There's this mechanic in here called ruin, and as ruin increases, I believe that's like the threat. They give you a Trophy Gold incursion here, just as an example. And a GM is going to lead you in an incursion. Oh, right. The writing and the description, the flocculent cathedral. So cool. So yeah, each little area of the forest or wherever you do the incursion has a temptation and a terror. And so, yeah, this is just like a pretty cool horror game that I've always wanted to play. I still want to play it. But again, I play a lot of solo games, and so this is not necessarily made for solo. However, I did see Candlelight, and this piqued my interest. Now, I avoided Candlelight because I thought for a while, and I just made this up in my head. I realize this now. This is kind of embarrassing to say. I thought that Candlelight was one of these journaling about your feelings RPGs, no offense. And I thought I almost think that this exists and I've just confused it. I thought that you had to like journal and use a candle as your timer, And I was like, good Lord, I have some candles that burn for like 12 hours. By the end of it, I'm going to have carpal tunnel. Just kidding. I already have carpal tunnel. But this game is not that. It is rooted in trophy. Okay. And so it's a trophy add-on, and it can be played with a GM or solo. Use the light and dark dice. And what it is this is kind of interesting. It is an epilogue for your character after they die in this game. So consider that. Say you had, this is what I want to know. Is there groups of people that play Trophy Dark like as often as they play 5e or anything? Because I want to be part of that group. I want to be part of the group that gets this, because what I feel like a lot of times you'll have a 5e group or a Pathfinder group or some other one of the major ones, and then somebody will say, hey, I found this really cool game. Should we try it? And maybe you'll try it for like a one-off. But I want to know, are there people that like get together and play Trophy Dark every week? I want to be around those people. But anyways, say your character perishes and you really like this character, so you want to give it a little more life. You then could play Candlelight, and Candlelight is going to be a sort of symbolic. Here, let me make sure I understand this just from like the little before I explain what something is, because I just flipped through it. So as I understand it, it starts with a wake, all right? And so it describes a vignette of the dark forest ending with the horrific scene before us, the bodies of treasure hunters and their spirits. And you will, so it begins where a game of Trophy Dark ends. And then, as far as I could tell, you're going to play through this sort of symbolic forest and to sort of negotiate your life, your last moments, right? So Candlelight can be played using the standalone scenarios Exodus or using any Trophy Dark scenario. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so however you died, it might be played into it. Let me just read a little bit because I'm prattling. All right. Generally, the GM will open the game with the wake, describing a vignette of the dark forest ending with the horrific scene before us, the bodies of treasure hunters and their spirits. The game shifts into free play, where players describe their characters' thoughts, feelings, and actions as they become accustomed to being a spirit. The GM, or I guess the soloist, may interject with questions or scenery details that evoke the game's themes. When the spirits confront something risky, challenging, or uncertain, look to the appropriate role and follow its procedure. Use the outcome to push the story forward, whether upon a success or failure. The journey continues onwards to the next gate and beyond. Progress forward when the players have faced the current gate's terrors and temptations, and each spirit has confessed a reckoning. Cool. So they have to kind of, because I guess like maybe if the game is about treasure hunters, I'm not saying all treasure hunters are bad, but I think it seems to be like treasure hunters are kind of scoundrels, right? Maybe there's some noble ones. So we have a section here on running the game. I'm wondering, I thought, and maybe I made this up. Here's an introductory scenario. I thought that there was specific instructions for solo play, but okay. Solo variation, the lone flame. The final journey of a ghost reckoning with their past is ultimately a story about being alone in the dark. To play Candlelight with one player, all rules remain the same, with minor additions to keep the flow of the game fresh and unpredictable. And then it states the principles, which I really like this. I really like when games state the principles of like, here's the guiding values. This is what we wanted this game to be like. This is what we imagine playing this game to be like. Because I don't have to follow that, but that gives me a good idea. That's a way to sort of translate what can't come through in just words on a page. All right, when a choice is presented or the story calls for action, look to your character's doom, drive, and memories for inspiration and ask your character, what do you do? If the action carries a risk of danger or complication, make a risk roll. Doing so is a flashback when needed to find out what happened before you died. When faced with something terrible, make a reckoning roll. As your character's despair grows, find ways to haunt your surroundings or release dirges. Yeah, so there's these dirges, and so it looks like your life meter in here is despair. So when you reach 6 despair, you have to do a final song. I want to find what a dirge is. Okay, dirges. The constant pull of the forest. When you exert your will upon the physical realm, you may sing a dirge, an unbridled lament that unleashes your torment into the world. Describe your dirge and make a risk roll. So I guess, yeah, so these are all, this is really cool because it's just the mechanics of like haunting the forest. Okay. But then if your despair gets too great, I guess you die again. You die more. All right. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it wouldn't look too hard to run a lot of these solo, just using the instructions here. Threads. If you need inspiration to move the story along, roll one light die and see what you encounter. You might then roll to the corresponding details. So it has like new obstacle, a strange denizen, a cursed treasure, facets. And then epilogue. At the end of your journey, regardless of the outcome, write a simple remembrance of your character to conclude the session. And it gives you a little template for that. And here's the appendices. Oh, this is cool. It gives you instructions on how to adapt a Trophy Dark incursion for Candlelight. Adapting characters from other games. Additional character options. Oh, let me tell you, the other game that I almost got, and I always almost get it, is Dragonbane. The thing that I am scared of is if you've seen it, it comes in that box, that starter set, and it was like $50. And because I had that $10 gift card, I was like, well, it's only $40. That's, if you round 40 down, it's $0. But the thing about that game that I worry about, and if anyone has it, let me know, is that it has its own book in that box for solo play. And I want to know if that book is a book or if that book is like a 4-page pamphlet that looks like something you're handed in Washington Park. But I always come so close to getting that because I love those little paper figurines that they have. I love the dice, everything about that. So here's some ancient entities. These look very cool. Use the following tables to build atmosphere and provide evocative details or story prompts for your game. In general, dark dice evoke a darker tone. Omens and portents, cursed treasures. Great. Oh, I'm not even showing you anymore. Sorry. I just get so into it. Cool. All right. The last one, I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry to make that sound. It's not like I think this game stinks, but here's what I've been worried about with Sherwood. I've seen it many times and I'm like, maybe I should get it. But there's two things that always stops me. Number one, it says it's for 1 to 6 players. And I'm always like, man, if your game can have 6 players, I'm betting that your game is for a lot of people. And sometimes games, I will say this, and I don't know if this is true. Sometimes games will be like, yeah, you could play this solo. And you're like, oh, cool. So it's like a solo game. They're like, yeah, you could play it solo. And you're like, well, how do you play it solo? They're like, you just got to adapt it. And you're like, okay, which like you can do. You can adapt almost any game into a solo game. But I don't know the difference here. Then here's the other thing, and this is extremely petty. But I just want to be honest about this. I want to be honest about this just to show you what people think about when they look at games. And also to make me more frightened about publishing mine. I hated how the book was. I hated the font. And I hated how it's set up. It's so dense that every time I opened it, I was like, oh, look at that. Oh, God. Like they just put way too much on every page. And as I'm looking at it, you know what this looks like to me? This looks like the Bible. And I'm not saying anything bad about the Bible or any religious text. It does look like a religious text though, right? And so whatever your religion is, whatever your text is, that's great. However, I went to Catholic school forever. And so this was like, oh boy, here we go. I've got a homework assignment. Okay. Um, and so that's why I was scared about it. And then again, nice cover and nice little pictures, and it looks like they really thought about this. But I just was like 27 pages. But it was only $12 this time, and so I said, all right, I'll try it out. So let's give it a shot. Lithe and listen, gentlemen, that be of freeborn blood. I shall tell you of a good yeoman. His name was Robin Hood. Robin was a proud outlaw, whiles he walked on ground. So courtesy an outlaw as he was one was never none you found. Oh, Middle English for you. Welcome to Sherwood. Robin Hood started out as fan fiction and has never been anything else. That was Carrie Vaughan, The Heirs of Lockslit. Great. So this is by Richard Ruane, which goes by R. Rook Studio. Be an outlaw. Okay, so be an outlaw is saying you're an outlaw. Don't worry about what polite society wants you to say or do or think. You're an outlaw. So I guess that's like absolving. They probably had to put that in because they're like, oh man, do the people playing this game think that they have to speak like Chaucerian English? Dabble with magic. So that's not usually in Robin Hood. Okay. So you describe your character. All characters are assumed to speak English. Well, many people in the 13th century were not literate, assume that your character is. So it looks like we have attributes of endurance, luck, willpower, wits. Roll 2d6 4 times, assigning each roll to your outlaw's attributes in order. Then re-roll the lowest attribute, ignore the new result if it's lower, and swap any two of them. If two or more attributes are 5 or less, add a single d6. Oof. Attributes may decrease during a game session from damage or spending them for benefits. Outlaws recover. All right. Here's the background abilities. Choose 2 at character creation. Each character has 2 background abilities that show the talents, skills, and natural abilities they've picked up before turning 18. Aristocrat. I like that. My ability is that I'm an aristocrat. Your outlaw's family had land and titles. They know the etiquette and okay, actually that does make sense. They know etiquette and writing skills, so they could probably like blend in. Jack of all trades, dabblers, heroic ability, arcane talent, background skills. See, to me, why put magic in this game? And if you want to make a game with magic, why make a Robin Hood game? I don't understand that. Does it feel like I'm being like overly critical of this game? It kind of feels like that to me. I'm sorry if that is. Let's keep going. So apparently, you turn 18 and start a career. See that? Even that was nasty. So apparently, so you turn 18 and start a career. All right. So in addition to those abilities, we could pick a career. It looks like a young outlaw, a hermit of St. Eustace, a guild trader, a wandering performer, a cavalier, a free laborer, a notorious criminal. Okay. And then you give someone like a trouble. So that's like protecting someone, forced marriage, unfortunate death. So this is anything that like what, I guess, what was the catalyst for your character to go into whatever they, their outlaw life. And then this is creating and equipping your outlaw band. Mary. Okay. Living in Sherwood with other outlaws, your character doesn't have personal or individual equipment, but instead has a collective pool of resources, supplies, weapons, and tools. All right, I do like that. Once you and your friends have created outlaws, see this? See this? Once you and your friends have created outlaws, roll 4d6 as a group and divide the dice results as you all wish between your crew's two scores, resources and legend. Work together to create your crew's mission and code. So I guess if you're solo playing this, you would just roll all this and just spread it across everybody. Okay. It says encumbrance. You should have a mission, 1 to 2 goals. All right, I like that. That is amenable to solo play. Your band should have a mission composed of 1 to 2 goals or ambitions that you want to accomplish. Provide money for those facing poverty, protect locals from the sheriff's bailiffs, protect the woods from the king's destructive foresters, or get revenge for a crime done. Your band should also create a short code that outlines a few things they will not do. For instance, your band's code may prohibit outlaws from attacking villagers, abusing commoners, endangering the innocent, etc. So it looks like the weapons here just are like changed by dice roll. So 2d6 damages daggers and other light weapons, 3d6 axe, sword, quarterstaff, 4d6 longbows, ranged weapons, armor, room and board. Okay, how to play. In Sherwood, most character actions are a fairly simple conversation with the GM and other players. Ordering beers, asking the locals some questions, getting in touch with a typical contact, using skills in relatively routine ways. These sorts of everyday actions don't require rolls. Whenever an outlaw attempts something risky where success is possible and failure is costly, the GM can call for a roll. So I guess if you're playing solo, that's just you. Say what your character is doing and what the known risks are and roll 2d6. You can add one of your outlaw's relevant skills if you have one. Okay, so basically it's 2d6 plus a modifier. Once the session starts, the most common reasons for dice to come out is because the characters are trying something risky for skill checks or avoiding danger saving throw. So we know this. We know this one. So here is how to make a skill check and a saving throw. Combat. Combat in Sherwood works like other situations. Attacks are skill checks, usually with melee, athletics, or archery. Where is this coming? Skill checks with melee, athletics, or archery. I thought that our stats were like, what are my stats? Endurance, luck, willpower, wits. So I guess they have I do see athletics and archery as skills, or I mean as like abilities. Defending yourself from damage or an opponent's maneuver is a saving throw. Initiative is conversational rather than the result of a roll. If a guard with a pike emerges from a nearby door and you decide your outlaw will throw their knife, simply make a relevant skill check. The GM. All right, I'm going to see. Is there anything about solo play? Teach yourself a skill. Big questions. Your outlaw takes time to do research and reconnaissance. Nope. Talk to the GM. Talk to the GM. It's kind of incredible that a game says talk to the GM, but there's no GM part of this book as far as I could see. So where is this higher authority of the GM? Oh, the Game Master's Guide with... Okay. This is 3 pages. All right. Okay. All right. I don't know. The forest is the domain of the king, and then it's like written in here, and the king is an ass. This very sort of anarchist orientation of this game. Opponents and NPCs. So here's like an adventure starter. We have the new sheriff's first tax delivery and the prison keep of Lady Maud. That's it. I'm sorry that I have to do this, but I have to look. Is there anything in here about solo play? Or did I? I mean, I'm not blaming this book. This looks fine. This looks like a good RPG. But I just want to know what happens when a game designer just says, "Yeah, put that it's 1 to 6 players." Why not? How to play. So, ostensibly, if you want to play this as a solo player, you're just kind of imagining. Because to me, there's nothing in here that is in an oracle. Maybe I'm really missing something here. Because okay, let's look at this. Do you have an existing character or opponents in another game system? So sometimes if there's another game system that they're recommending, maybe there's, and this is Troika, which is, as far as Troika does not have any solo. Dragon games. Dragon game opponents. All right. So as far as I can see, necromancy, pyromancy, and true seeing. Sorcery. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that game. All right. So yeah, so that's my haul. And again, the this one was I had it for like a week. I got it, but I wanted to show it anyways. This one goes with Trophy Dark. This one goes with 4 Against Darkness. This one's Perplexing Ruins, and this one's just Perplexing. And if you have a game group, why don't you go ahead and tell them, hey, let's play Trophy Dark for a year. I would just love to hear about that. But otherwise, thank you for stopping by, and I hope that next time you go to the game store, you have more than 17 minutes to look. That's my hope for all of you. Merry Christmas.